Okay, guys, I wanted to have a quick session on grades and what to look for the final before we get started into the other material. First of all, how to calculate your grade is one question that gets asked by me a lot right around now, and then also how that historically does in class. So the first way to figure out your grade is to take your 4 exam scores, whatever they are. And let's say you get a 68 on exam 1, say you got a 74 on exam 2, you got an 84 on exam 3, and an 80 on exam 4. If you take those scores, let's calculate this out real quick. You've got 68 plus 74 plus 84 plus 80, and that's going to equal 306. Okay, so you just plug in your 4 grades. You're going to multiply that by 1.25. And that gives, instead of a 306 as in total points, it gives you a raw score of 382.5. That will be out of 500 points for your overall score. All right? So you have 382.5, okay? And then you're going to put your 200 quiz points, assuming you've gotten 200. And remember, on quizzes, you probably had about 300, 350. I don't know, this is a bad semester exactly on how many quiz points you've had. But a lot of people, they do even 65, 70 average on the quizzes, usually get a total of 200 quiz points if they haven't missed any at all. Or at least if they missed one, it was a small one and not one of the ones that counted double or had a bunch of questions on. So I'm going to assume most of y'all got 200 points. It's almost like a given 100 in an overall score. So that would give me a total, the 382.5 plus 200, that would give me 582.5 going into the final. Now the final is worth 300 points in your overall score, i.e. 30% of your overall grade. Typically, the final exam is 100 questions. Each question is worth 3 points. Now, I don't see that happening with it being online this semester. Honestly, I mean, most all your test questions or tests have been usually 50 points or 50 questions. And now, over the last couple of exams, at least, you've only had 25 questions on the exam. So can I see a 50 question exam? Absolutely. If that's the case, each question would be worth 6 points to your overall grade. If it's 100 questions, then it's 3 points for your overall. Each question is worth 3 points of your overall grade. All right? So then you're going to plug in just a typical score of what you would want to get. All right? And to figure out what that is, say you average, let's see, you averaged, your raw average was, if I gave the scores of 68, 74, 84, 80, the raw average is a 76.5 on the exam. That's without the 1.25 multiplier and all that stuff. So you're averaging on those exams a 76.5. The final is typically 4 to 5 points lower than your average score. So if you do that, you take 4, let's say take 4.5 points off. That means you're going to have an average of a 72 then on your final. You would multiply that times 3, and that would give you roughly how many points you get on your final. Let's say you get 216 points. You would have 216 points, then you would add up all those together, and you're at basically almost 800, 798.5. Okay? 798.5. Now you can do the adjustments on your grades, and if you have any questions, feel free to text me and or email me, and we'll go over your grades. Swim will go over your grades and see how you're doing. But you want to know kind of what you're getting into. Remember, on the final exam, 300 points cumulative final. We're going to talk about what's the main emphasis of all the major material in a little while in this little session real quick. But what I want y'all to know is take your 4 scores, and that's after any kind of a curve has been given. So whatever your raw score is after the curve, you're going to add those up, and you're going to multiply by 1.25. That will give you your average, your total score for the 4 exams. That's out of 500 points. So in this situation, you would have averaged, in that situation, you would have 382 points out of a possible 500. it should give you the same score roughly thereabouts. If you add in the 200 points, then that puts you at 700, and then you add in, say, 216 points. That would give you almost 800 points total. So you can figure out what you're going to need on the final exam to get a rough estimate of your total point scores. Now that you know how to do that, hold on, let me get an eraser real quick. All right. All right. If you notice, this is, I don't know if y'all can read this because of the glare, but that's how I did this exam score. I'm trying to get the glare out of the way. I just did the scores, and that's how we got the points of almost 800. Now I'm going to give you a raw estimate based upon previous semesters of what it takes to get certain grades in certain classes. Now, in 211, and I wish I had a marker that worked a little bit better. Hold on. Okay, in 211, an A typically is 855 points plus. Okay. Let me see where the lowest range of a B was a couple of semesters back. I had for a B, the lowest B I had a couple of semesters ago was 771 points. Now, it may have been lower than that or whatnot. Nobody that I talked to got below a C, so just think of the 771 as a B range for 211. For 209, the A range is about 835 or more points. I'm looking, I had an 831.25, got an A, so we can make it 831 points right there. And the lowest C in 209 I had two C's, and the lowest one I'm looking at was a 738. So a 738 got a B in the class, and anything below a 738, now that was just the lowest score I had, was a C. And like I said, I didn't have anybody that was a season pass holder that got less than a C. This semester, I think the average was a 3.16 or 3.46, sorry, on A's and B's. I had two C's. 714 was a C, 738 was a C, and 727 was a C. All right, so that's a raw estimate of what you need points-wise. I'm going to move this over here closer to you again. Once again, for 211, an A was 855 points, and a B was 771. Now, this is the lowest I saw for an A. That was the lowest I saw for a B. The scores may be off. It may be 850 might have been the A. I just didn't have anybody that was that. That was my lowest A I had. Okay, that was my lowest B that I had. It may be even lower. It could have been 760 for all I know, but that was my lowest one. For 209, the scores are a little bit better. 831 was an A, and 738 was a B. So anything below 738 might have been a C. That is the scores right there. Okay, so that gives you a little bit of an idea of what you need points-wise. So calculate your grade. If I had given you those scores, what were the scores I gave out? I think I gave out a 60, 68, 74, 84, and an 80 or something like that. And we came out with 790 something. So that was an easy B range by 60 points. So you didn't even have to score that good on the final to keep a B if they were in 209. Now 211, the grades are usually a little bit higher for a point total, just so you note that. Now, sometimes these numbers get adjusted if it gives you a bonus points. Sometimes you'll do a 3% or 30 points added to your overall score if you did like a management survey for a psychology review or something like that. I don't think you did that this semester, but just give an FYI there. He usually builds that in when he does a curve anyway. So look over your scores. Feel free to email me or text me, and we'll go over your grades relative to, I've got a couple other semesters numbers. This is the ones that has the biggest one of number of people, so it gives me the better skew ratio. Now, that's the grades. Now let's talk about the final. There are 10 subject areas that are more important on the final, and most of them fall into the first two exams. Most of them fall into the first two exams. Now, the 10 subject areas that are probably going to be the most important. Let me find it. There we go. Okay. And I kind of tried to put it in chronological order. All right. And this is just based upon general information over the long term. It is based upon a 100 question test. You might not have 100 questions on it and stuff like that. Now, going in chronological order, the history of the Constitution and any states associated to it, and any other states, honestly, from chapters 9, all that stuff, like Wyoming and Texas and Kansas with the wheat fields or blue sky laws, anything dealing with the history and or states, those are fairly easier questions, although the history can be somewhat difficult, knowing the cause and effect of certain things. But note the history. Most of that is going to be early chapter 2, or in chapter 2 for the most part, but the states could come in all sorts of different areas. And we'll go over some of the states when we go over a video on just states alone. The Texas court system. Compare the Texas court system. This is one of the bigger ones. It probably was one of the bigger ones on your first exam. The Texas court system can be big. One semester, he did only chapter 3 on the final. I think he made a misclick. And instead of doing all chapters in a random generator, he only clicked chapter 3. All 100 questions were from chapter 3. In fact, one of the workers at 4 Go at the time, she was taking the class. She said she literally had the same question on her exam 6 times verbatim. It's great if you know the answer because you're getting all 6 right. But the problem is if you don't know the answer, then you're having to guess and hedge your bets. So court systems, that is a Texas court system chart. If you were here for exam 1, you had the Texas court system chart already. You can get an early thing on it. I'll be doing another video on the Texas court system chart once again later on. Contractual terms like express, implied, quasi, all those things. If we did on exam 1, we did the 5 things that you need to know about how a contract is created. All the words associated to that, along with all the R words you may have as well. That would be another big one. The contractual elements, the 5 elements, the 5 major elements of contracts, and any kind of storyline scenarios that come into play there. The next one would be agency law. So of the top 5, agency law would also be the end of chapter 4. That was exam 1. So 5 of the 10 that are usually the big ones on the exam are over exam 1 material. I'm going to redo videos on all the exam 1 material. I'm going to leave up exam 2, 3, 4 on the video. So if you want to look them over, we'll talk about that at the very end of this video as well. Personal intentional torts and all the scenarios associated to like assault, battery, false imprisonment, defamation, invasion of privacy. So I would definitely go back over that part 1 video in chapter 5. I think it's the red packet part 1, which would be the personal intentional torts. I think it's even part 1 and 2. I would go over that definitely because those are going to be one of the bigger ones. Per se and rule of reason would be chapter 7 with antitrust law. No, the per se and rule of reason. The 4 major labor acts from chapter 8 would be a big one. All the tier 1 cases, and in your packet, I don't know if it's in part 1 finals or part 2, I give you a complete list of all the common law cases. It gives you all the something be something that are either tier 1 or tier 2, and gives you a complete list of all those. So you don't have to go through all the packets. All the tier 1s and tier 2s are going to be listed on one page. Maybe it's a front page and back page and gave you a little more room and gave you the significance of each of those. That would be another one that comes into play. The last one of number 10, I would say those are going to be the biggest 9, no question. And then I would say the administrative agency types like historical era, socially conscious era, New Deal era, independent, dependent, economy-wide, industry-specific, and then the FDA especially. I would think that would be number 10 in terms of the top 10 of everything that's on the exam. Now, typically an exam does not have a lot of the newest material, meaning you're probably not going to have anything from chapters. You're not going to have much. I want to say much. Typically from chapters 13, 14, 15, and 16, depending on if you're on 209 or 211. You typically don't have very many of those. Okay. That said, it's all fair game because he's going to have cut and paste out at least 50 questions probably for this final. So he could do it to where the newer material is going to be emphasized more, or it's going to be normal, typical. It's going to be the older material. I would focus mainly on chapters 1 through 5, and then also the 4 major acts and the per se rule of reason would be the things that I would focus on the most. You already have videos for the personal intentional torts. You also have the videos for per se and rule of reason. You also have the 4 major acts, and you also have the administrative agencies type, and you have a chart that should already be filled in the packets for finals that you have, that you didn't have to either do live with me when you came to the review, or I'd given you a copy of it. I think it was on a lime green sheet. If you're in 211, you've already got a copy of it. I think everybody's got a copy of it as well. I also filled in some of the charts that we did and gave those to you in the finals packet. They're already filled in, so you can look those over as well. All right, those would be my 10 subject areas I think are the most important. We will do a video later on dealing with all the history and the sources of law, chapter 1 and the history. I will probably then go over all the states as well, all the different states and their importance throughout the whole semester. That'll probably be one video, and then I'll do the court system, Texas court system, comparing it to the federal system, and we'll refill in that chart if you don't have it already. And then I'll do chapter 4. I usually, when I do the final exam stuff, we usually go very somewhat slow, not as slow as we do in a regular test, but we go slow through chapters 1 through 5, at least through personal intentional torts. So contracts, contractual elements, agency law, personal intentional torts, I go so much slower, and then I go faster through the rest of the material. I'm probably going to go at the same speed, and then I'm going to give you another thing. Everybody should have gotten a 100 question finals charity packet as well that bought either the finals review and or bought season pass. These are a couple of 100 question exams. We usually do them during a live session. We go over the 100 questions and do a question and answer. And I kind of modify and say, here's how you might phrase on the exam, or here's how you might have seen on your exam, but here's my question stuff. So go over those. I think test A in that blue packet for the finals is each chapter for the first 50 or so questions is weighted equally. So you're going to have 3 questions from chapter 1, 3 questions from chapter 2, and then the other 40 or 45, 50 questions will be all scrambled up. And then B, sample test B, is another 100 question test. Now you may only have 50 questions, so theoretically you'll have 4 exams that you'll get to go over in those things. There are some extra 50 questions in the back of the packet for part 1 and part 2. Those are really way too easy. Just gives you a buffer to do extra questions if you want. If you, I wouldn't spend a whole lot of time on those. Some of them are fairly old, not as difficult as SWIMS exams. So I'd focus on more the charity questions and or the rules of 30s that you didn't have previously. In your finals packet, there are going to be 30 questions I did not give in the normal semester that are brand new 30 questions on like Constitution or contracts or torts that are added in there that you can do on your own that are in the packets for the red and purple packets. So what to expect. If you need any questions on your grades and I'll calculate it, please text me or email me and I'll be glad to go over that. I should start doing the videos for chapter 1. It's history of chapter 2 and some states. That'll probably be one video. The rest of chapter 2 will be another video. Texas court system will probably be a video and comparing it to the federal court system. I think the 5 pages of litigation, I'm not going to really go over in depth. I think those 2 pages for 5 pages of litigation are self-explanatory. And then I'm going to go over contracts. And I'll spend quite a bit of time on the contracts. It might be a 3 or 4-parter for the videos. And then you already have on my YouTube website, chapters 5 all the way through the rest of them. Once again, normally I would say the test is at least 2/3 material is probably from chapters 1 through 5. And the back third is chapters 6, 7, 8, and the rest on, with only maybe 10 or so questions of the more recent material completely. And now with 50, you can even say that only be like 4 or 5. So I would focus not so much on the newest material unless you had a problem with the jail time fines and jail times, or the control technologies, or if you're in 211, all the countries of the EU and Mercosur and stuff like that. If you had a bunch of questions on that, go over that again as well. All right. If you have any questions, once again, please don't hesitate to ask, and I'm going to start getting the videos together for the early chapters 1 through 4 as soon as possible, probably starting tomorrow. All right. Good luck.